Hello and welcome to Tea Time on a yet another episode from Delhi. Joining me today on the show is Rohit Ohri, who is the Executive Chairman of the Denzil India Group. We're standing right here at the DLF Golf and Country Club in Gurgaon. And today on the show, we are going to be taking a look at how India positions itself vis-a-vis the rest of the world in terms of creativity in the advertising sector and many more aspects related to it.
On the show this week, we have Rohit Ohri, Executive Chairman, Denzil India.
One of the big things that we've actually done is focused on what is actually the core of Denzil, and that's been what Denzil's actually stood for the last 111 years.
In news, Ernie Els wins the BMW International Open and Craig Stadler wins the Encompass Championship.
Nice shot.
Thank you so much, Rohit. I'm so glad you took time out of your busy advertising schedule and made time to be on Tea Time here today with me.
Pleasure to be here.
So Rohit, let's start off with creativity in the advertising sector. How does India distinguish itself and position itself in terms of creativity vis-a-vis the rest of the world?
You know, over the last almost 5 years, I think, one of the biggest things that's been happening is that India has actually made a big mark on creativity on the global stage, really. And if you see Cannes, India has been winning consistently at Cannes, which is, you know, the Oscars of advertising. And that's been something really heartening, because for all of us, you know, we believe that we have a lot of creative talent in India. We just need a global stage. And I think we've finally got the world looking at India and looking at India in a very positive manner.
Interesting, you're talking about getting global, and we're seeing a lot of Indian CCOs as well getting global as well, namely Piyush Pandey, one of them, Balki is the other one. Now, you know, the overall mindset is that the Chinese have positioned themselves as being the better CCOs of the world. How does India stack up against the Chinese?
Well, I don't know whether I'd actually compare India with China, quite honestly. I don't think China as a country has really built any brands. If you look at it, I think India's contribution to building brands in India as well as on a global stage has really been fantastic. So the way I look at it, I think, you know, Indian talent is really top-notch and the best in the world. And I think I wouldn't really compare with China.
Okay, let's tee off now and we'll discuss the advertising sector, which is your domain, in much more detail after that. Come.
Sure.
Of late, we're seeing that clients are becoming more hands-on. Advertising agencies are merely executors to the client. Do you see that trend setting in? Or would you like to distinguish yourself there?
So, you know,
or would you have a diverse opinion to that?
So, my opinion is a little different. You know, while, you know, it is true that, you know, clients are today, you know, very up to date with what is happening in the marketing, advertising, what is the cutting edge new innovation that there is. But I think, you know, that's the challenge for advertising agencies, really, to bring to clients new ideas that, you know, they haven't really thought of. You know, my classic example of that is, you know, why have a dog and bark yourself? You know, so the whole thing is that, you know, clients need advertising agencies. They need advertising agencies because agencies really understand creativity around brands. And that, to my mind, is something that is the advertising agency domain. So very clearly clients value that, and agencies who can't provide clients with that level of creativity then really have problems going forward, you know.
So let the dog do the barking is your opinion.
Absolutely, absolutely.
What in your opinion is the fate of suits, considering that the creators have become a very dominant force?
You know, firstly, I hate the word suits. To my mind, I think there is nothing called a suit. You know, just because you wear a suit, you don't become a suit. So hopefully, in creative terms, you know, we don't believe in having suits. Suits is like what constrains people. But, you know, to answer your question more specifically, I think one of the things that are challenging the account management in advertising agencies is the value that they're bringing to the business. A lot of creative people are actually now connecting directly with clients. So planners are actually working out the strategies. So what's the role of the account management? And it can't be to drive everybody to a meeting, right? So
True.
that's not the role. And I've actually, within the Denzil India group, I've actually helped articulate what each one of these, disciplines have to do. So, my whole thing is everything is centered around the work. So you're either inspiring the work, you're creating the work, or you're helping to sell the work. You have to be doing one of these three things. Otherwise, you have no place in an advertising agency. And I think suits really need to evaluate which one of these three things they're doing and what would be their contribution to the work. That's the most important thing.
FICCI reports are indicating that the media industry is likely to going forward in the next 2 years or 3 years to come by around 2017 by about 5.7% of a CAGR is the rate we're expecting. And there are other reports that are suggesting that the Indian advertising agency alone is expected to grow at 7.4% this year. Is that now more in line with your estimates?
Yeah, that's right. That is. It is, I think, a more reasonable and a more accurate estimate of growth rate.
So what is fueling this growth rate?
A lot of things. I think there are certain industries which are actually fueling this growth rate. We would have actually liked it to be much higher. I think there is a negative sentiment in the consumers right now, and we've seen that over last year.
It has had a tough decade over the last 10 years, obviously.
Yeah, but I would say the last year or so has been really difficult. Okay. Because a number of industries are actually suffering, a big slowdown. So, for instance, if you look at the automotive sector and you look at electronic sector, so these are the two sectors which are seeing a significant amount of slowdown. So,
a sector that might see a bit of an upside would be your defensive sectors like pharmaceuticals and FMCG. Would you agree with me?
Yeah, FMCG is still steady. Pharmaceuticals, of course, is something which is pretty, inflation proof or, negative sentiment proof. So, to my mind, I think the big, sectors which are growing and which could be fueling this particular growth rate is really about telecom and, handsets as well as service providers. So that is the one sector which is really, really aggressive.
Rohit, now industry leaders have pegged India to be the 12th largest growing advertising market in the world. Having said that, why are we then an under-advertised nation?
When you talk about India as an under-advertised country, I think a lot of it is to do with the stage of development in the country. So, distribution, getting the marketing, getting the product right is really a big focus for all the marketeers and advertisers. So, at a later stage, as the market develops, then the advertising spends also kind of develop, the competition becoming fierce. That's the time when advertising really picks up. And I think we are at that cusp, really. And I'm really optimistic of the next decade or so. I think the Indian advertising industry will also be, in the top 3 in the world.
You're talking about India and advertising in the next 10 decades. One really important and the most conspicuous trend that is setting in not only in India, but the rest of the world happens to be digitization. Now, at the back of digitization, are we eroding spends from television further? Because the spends are now getting targeted towards the digital media more than ever before.
Chaiti, the thing is to understand what is digitization, and when you look at digital communication, today everything is digital, right? So even this very program, I watch it on my iPad, right? So
you're watching it on YouTube?
Yeah, I watch it. I watched, and I watched your previous episodes on my iPad. So the fact is that I'm not really looking at the conventional media, So
television and appointment viewing is passé, which means.
Yeah, that's right. So pretty much you control everything, and the more and more as we see it, the control is in the hands of the consumers. So to my mind, this is the new reality. The consumers are really not going to be looking at, they're just directed by content. It does not matter where the content actually appears. So whether it's television, radio, on the internet, it doesn't really matter. So
gone are the days of appointment viewing on television,
That's
which
right.
also means that we are eroding spends from television further.
Yes and no, because, for a country like India, I think the diversity of India, the fact that we have many SECs, many states, many languages, it's very hard to replace television and not replace television. it won't be
it's a bit of a
so
long
soon.
way before we
Yeah,
replace
that's
it.
right. It
Absolutely.
won't be so soon. And the interesting thing is that television has really reinvented itself. So television has also become an two-way medium. So you've actually started interacting with content. So the reality shows that today, are most popular and highly viewed are really about, consumers actually not just sitting back and watching content, they're sitting up
involved
and interacting with the content,
Okay, so television actively involving its viewers as well, digitization impacting advertising spends as well. A lot of trends, interesting ones while at it, setting into the Indian advertising industry. We're going to continue discussing this on the other side of the break as well with Rohit Ohri of Denzil India. Welcome back to a very hot summery day of tea time. We're in conversation with Rohit Ohri, who is the executive chairman of the Denzil India Group. We have established earlier that the advertisers' focus is now shifting to greener pastures in the digital medium. It also means that radio is likely to suffer a bit of a setback. But having said that, Rohit, the phase 3 licensing policy, all of that is all about to change. Where do you think radio stands now in terms of advertising?
So we really need that reform that we are looking at. So with the phase 3, reforms coming in, I think radio will see an expert. The other interesting fact is that, mobile phones are actually the next device which are actually bringing in a resurgence of radio listenership, because what you find is at a lower SEC level where people don't have that many entertainment avenues, workers who are working in fields, working in construction sites, they actually use their mobile as entertainment devices, and they hook on to radio channels and they're listening to music continuously. And this is a phenomenon that's happening across the country. So it's no more radio sets, it's mobiles, really from where you're actually listening to radio. And I think that's a big new trend. And, also talks to the fact that the mobile phone is going to be the next big thing that brands and advertisers and advertising agencies need to figure out how to actually use that as a medium of communication.
Staying with mobile phones, Rohit, I'm glad you mentioned it. In fact, there was a survey by Google done very recently that said that Indian smartphone users are using the internet much more than their counterparts back there in the US. Now, having said that, there is also a deep aspect of social media marketing involved with the mobile phone usage as well. How is that affecting the trends in advertising?
The big thing around social media is really about the change in communication and the way brands are talking to consumers. So it's no longer a one-way communication between a brand and a consumer. It's a dialogue, and people actually want to enter into a dialogue with the brands that they buy. So
corporates are taking that medium very seriously now in this country.
That's right. So social media has become a very important medium where brands are really using it to connect with consumers. The other interesting thing is that anybody who has a problem with a brand, so you take out a car and you don't get a good service, the first thing you do is on your Facebook page, on the Facebook page of the brand, you're complaining.
On Twitter, you're complaining all the time.
Right. And the first thing that happens is the brands, the company's managing director, the head of marketing will call the irate customer and solve the problem immediately. So
and they do respond to you on Twitter. I've noticed that.
That's right. And so the power of social media, the power of the internet is enormous, and that is what brands need to understand and brand needs to get right.
So the hashtag seems to be the new tomorrow.
Yeah, that's
isn't
right.
it?
That's right.
All right. Time now for me to continue my game. Let's talk about the regional press and of course the print advertising now. We're seeing a paradigm shift where regional press is doing better than your English newspapers. Is that somewhere affecting the revenues generated by print media?
So, print advertising in print would be about 160 crores. Out of this 160, 100 would be from regional, print magazines and newspapers. So to my mind, I think there are two or three things which are actually affecting this. One of them is the fact that, marketeers are now focusing on regional, areas, lower SECs. So a lot of the marketing dollars are actually going there, because what we are seeing is that that's where the new India and the new consumption is
That's where the
actually
mass
coming from.
market is
The mass
as well.
market is coming from. That's where the heart of India is.
So the niche publications are suffering a bit of an impact given those strategies.
That's right. That's right. That is affecting, and then the growing literacy in India as well is fueling that, because a lot of the regional newspapers are benefiting from that. Really.
Also the transit advertising and of course out-of-home advertising as well, as you call OOH advertising, we're expected to see a moderate growth of about 4.3% in 2013. Is that in line with your estimates, and how much of a trend do you see setting there for this figure to go upwards from here?
So
and what's fueling it?
So there are 2-3 things here. One, the fact is conventional outdoor, I think, is under threat. I don't think there is much role of conventional outdoor as you see it, going forward, and I don't think that is really going to see explosive growth. What you'll see great growth is in ambient, and what I mean by ambient is the fact that you see retail, the malls, okay, where a lot of consumers, young consumers, are hanging out today. You feel a lot of advertising, a lot of brands are trying to connect with consumers in that sphere as well. Now that is out of home, but that is really become a little more interactive, engaging for consumers, and the impact is much more. So that is really what the future of out of home is going to be going forward.
All right, so Rohit, interesting point brought out by you about how ambient advertising is the future, and of course that is the future of traditional OOH advertising as well. We're going to discuss a little more in detail about the Denzil India Group. Take a quick break. On the other side, more on Denzil. Thank you for staying with us on Tea Time. We're still in conversation with Rohit Ohri, who is the Executive Chairman of the Denzil India Group. Rohit, you have had a wonderful stint with JWT in the past. In fact, you were the person who drove PepsiCo to popularity with the Ye Dil Mange More campaign as well. You were handling ITC as well. What has been your landmark campaign after the past 1.5 years of you joining Denzil?
So at Denzil, basically the way we are looking at it is there are many brands that we are actually bringing, or brands which are connecting with Indian consumers for the first time. So after the Hero and the Honda split, we are working with Honda on actually creating a strong connect between brand Honda and the Indian consumers. So we created this whole campaign around Sach Kar Denge Sapne, which is the Indian version of the Power of Dreams campaign that Honda has running globally. So that's one bit, and the other bit we did for Canon, which was what makes us click. And that's
nice.
Really a beautiful idea around young people and how their relationship with cameras and their relationship with photography is. They want to click everything, and that's something that we captured in the line, what makes us click.
What has been your ideology at Denzil? How do you manifest change into transformation?
So, one of the big things that we've actually done is focused on what is actually the core of Denzil, and that's been what Denzil's actually stood for the last 111 years. And I think that's been around integrated communication thinking. So unlike other networks, Denzil has always been an integrated network. It's never unbundled its services. So it's a one-stop shop for clients to actually come in for digital solutions, for activation solutions, for out-of-home, for media, for creative work. So that's what we are actually focusing on in India. So what we are doing is, looking at this whole group. And the way we are actually working together is it's a collaborative network. So it's not a structured network saying that, if a client comes in with a particular need, the network adjusts itself and organizes itself around the client's need. So we don't believe in rigid networks. And that's really the way advertising agencies will need to function going forward, is really about putting the client's needs or the brand's needs in the center and structuring a network around it, where depending on, it doesn't matter where the talent is, whichever company the talent is, we bring that talent to, on that brand or with the client.
So it's all about convergence now at Denzil.
That's right.
Now Denzil and digital, what are the plans going forward?
So, we've just acquired Web Chutney, which is India's #1 digital agency. So that
What prompted you for that acquisition? You've also acquired Taproot.
That's right.
What is the idea behind these two acquisitions really?
So, both Taproot and Web Chutney really are the best in class. Taproot is India's best creative agency, and Web Chutney is India's best digital agency.
Right.
So, you know, in our quest to actually look at what is the next big thing that we want to do with clients is really looking at, you know, best-in-class services for them. And so we are not stopping short of, you know, getting the best partners on board. And that is really what has prompted us to go ahead and, you know, acquire these two companies.
I'm going to give you some breather to think about. If you had to make a ad campaign for Tea Time, what would it be? But I don't want an immediate answer. You can think about that while you're finishing your game.
Okay.
Come.
Not bad, a bogey. That's great.
So, Tea Time. You were taking your time out to think about a campaign for the show while you were putting, isn't it?
Yeah. So what I have is an idea for you.
Right.
And I also have a medium, you know, so it's not just an idea like what I was telling you, you know, we believe in integrated communication. So, you know, my thought for Tea Time is really putting things into perspective.
Nice.
That's your idea. And I thought it'd be interesting, actually, if you used this as where you could actually, you know, have the message printed inside
The lip
this.
out.
Yeah, the lip out. You could actually print your message there. And that'd be a great novel use of, you know, the golf course, your brand, its property, and that the whole
And also
thought of
putting things into perspective as well. Lovely. I'm going to. This is a note for the promo teams if you're watching the show right now. Coming back to golf, which is the golfer that inspires you the most? Whose game do you love?
You know, I won't say Tiger Woods.
Everyone
Because
says
my
Tiger
wife
Woods.
said, don't say Tiger Woods.
Okay.
So Jack Nicklaus. I
Okay.
think he's truly an inspirational golfer. He's had a long span, a beautiful long span of a career. And, you know, as the youngest golfer and then playing the senior golf tournaments, I think he's been fantastic. And there's something he said which I thought was very inspirational. You know, he said, never be scared of taking classes. I've never been scared. So, you know, to me, life gives you a class every day, you know, and
Right.
life gives you a lesson every day. And you must always be in a receptive mode. You must always be learning. And that, in a creative organization, is the most important thing, because you always need to learn, and life teaches you many lessons. And you need to learn and learn these lessons over and over again, because you're never, you know, done as far as this is concerned.
So on that beautifully inspirational note, we will say goodbye to you. Thank you so much, Rohit, for joining me
Thank
on
you
the
so
show.
much.
I will continue putting things in perspective and remember that campaign of yours on that note. It's a wrap from Rohit Ohri and me, Chaiti Narula. I will see you next week again. Until then, enjoy the flight of a good drive.